Hey there, beautiful humans, and welcome to Surviving My Story Teens. I'm Miss Mickey, and I'm so honored to be part of your story today. This podcast is all about navigating the twists, turns, and unexpected plot twists in the story God is writing for your life. If you've ever wondered, why is this chapter of my life so hard? How do I find the confidence to turn the page when I don't know if things will get better? What does it look like to live out the beautiful ending God has already written for me? You're in the right place. Here we'll talk about learning how to love yourself and others through an identity in Christ, how to walk faithfully through life's toughest chapters. Every great story has its ups and downs, moments of triumph and times of trial. But the beauty is this: you don't have to write it alone. The author of all creation holds the pen, and he's weaving a masterpiece with your life. So grab your journal, a cozy drink, or just find a quiet moment, and let's walk this journey together. Because no matter how tough this chapter feels, you have the power to partner with God and shape the ending into something truly extraordinary. Welcome to the show, everyone. We are talking about such an important topic today, and with a person that is so important to me. Today, we're going to talk with one of my former students. Her name is Anna, and I had the privilege of teaching her and getting to know her during her 8th grade year. She's a freshman now. Now, I'm not her teacher anymore, but I am happy to call her friend. Anna is... Are you 15, Anna?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah. So she's 15. I have seen her. I'm sure you have a lot of hobbies, Hannah, but I've seen you get into that pageant world, and just stunning, absolutely.
Thank
What are other
you.
hobbies that you have?
I love playing my clarinet. That's a big one I love doing. And I love listening to music.
Oh, okay, absolutely. Oh, and also Anna, she wrote actually a children's story. She was one of our finalists in a children's story contest that I did. So definitely creative for sure. So last year, I was able to walk alongside Anna, through some rough situations, and I've seen her grow so much over the last year. And so I'm really excited to have her here today to talk about her story. And specifically, we're going to talk about her struggle with her relationship with food. And I know that this is one that, many teens, especially females, that it's something that a lot of us go through. So thank you so much, Anna, for being on the show and being willing to share your story with us. I just know so many people are going to be encouraged by your story.
Thank you. I'm very excited to share my story and be here with you today.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's just jump right in. So, can you share with us your story of being diagnosed with anorexia? How did it begin? How did you get up to that diagnosis?
For many people, anorexia, the journey often begins with a mix of emotions: perfectism, fear of losing control, and anxiety, and sometimes deep-seated insecurities about self-worth. The desire to feel in control of something, especially when something feels chaotic, can make food and body image an easy focus. When I was in 5th grade, I started hitting puberty before most of my peers. It made me feel bigger, and the comments people made about my body only amplified that feeling. By the time I entered junior high, things got even harder. I remember being 13, constantly looking at my body in the mirror, convinced that my thoughts were just normal teenage worries. My mom got the same thing when I shared how I felt. But as months passed, things only got worse. By the time I reached 8th grade, it became one of my hardest years of my life. That's when my eating disorder took hold. I entered my first ever relationship, which turned out to be a big mistake. It not only made everything worse, that's when I started purging and spitting out my food and hiding it. Eventually, I went to the doctor and I was diagnosed with anorexia.
So, was there a specific moment that made you realize that you needed help?
I remember one day my mom and certain people would always point out, like, hey, you're losing a bunch of weight. But I remember one day, like, I was in track practice because I was a little track girl in junior high, and the coach came up to me and she told me that I looked really skinny and that, like, asking if everything's going okay at home. And she ended up calling my mom and asking. And that's when my mom kind of took control of everything. And I just thought, like, how I looked was normal at the time. Like, nothing was wrong, that I was fine. Like,
So, what was that like for you when the coach said she was going to call your mom? Were you worried at that point? Did you think you were going to get in trouble?
yeah, I was really worried because I was kind of confused at the time. Like, because I didn't think I thought I looked large. Like, I didn't think I looked like a stick, like everyone had mentioned. And like so I kind of just thought, like, this is weird. Like, does she think like I'm getting abused or something, or getting starved at home? Like my mom's doing this or something? Like, it was just really confusing to me at the time.
So, when people would tell you how skinny that you looked, was that something that created like a negative emotion for you? Were you ashamed of that or were you kind of proud of it?
I was At the time I was really proud of it. It kind of when most people with eating disorders like anorexia, the compliment that you look too skinny or that you look skinny or anything that involves that, it can start like that's like a compliment to us. Like, that's a motive to keep getting worse and worse.
Yeah, it
Like,
just makes you want to keep doing the same things.
it's like a medicine that keeps you wanting to get worse.
Absolutely. And so, you mentioned like a lack of control is often kind of the start of that. So, was it the comments that led you to stop eating, like the comments about your body, or was it just there was all kinds of things going on?
I think it was more of like all of the changes that were happening because I was 10 years old. Like, I felt pretty young, like hitting puberty and everything. And then, like I said, I was bigger, like taller, and started like developing like breasts and everything before everyone
Yeah,
else. And like
that's
that,
hard when you're 10.
yeah, because I didn't really understand what was going on.
Well, and so many people develop later than that, that I imagine that feels really isolating.
It did. Like, I would get like I just remember getting stared at. Like, I just looked so different than everyone else.
Sure. And you're probably also experiencing the difference of all those hormonal changes, like the emotions that come along with that. When I don't know if you started your cycle earlier, but once that happens, there's all kinds of physical and mental and emotional changes.
Absolutely, yes.
So, how did your eating disorder affect your daily life from a physical standpoint?
It took a serious toll on every part of my life. Physically, it drained me. I had to quit playing all sports, and I couldn't do anything that required too much energy, basically. My body simply couldn't keep it up. Mentally, I was exhausted. Every day felt like a battle in my mind. On top of the pressures of school and everything in my life, anorexia made it all worse. And emotionally, I tried to fake being okay for as long as I could. But eventually, I couldn't anymore. Every night, I would cry myself to sleep, wondering why I couldn't be perfect like the popular pretty girls at school that always get boyfriends or are very athletic, or why I couldn't just love myself. I thought maybe if I got smaller, just maybe, more people would like me. But the truth was, I was mostly losing myself in the process and was possibly months away from losing my life.
Wow, it became a really dark time for you then. So, do you think that you would have kept going on this track had that coach not caught it and said something?
I feel like I would. If that never happened, I don't even want to imagine the state I would be in right now.
Do you ever imagine what your life might look like, or Are you just trying to focus on the present?
I I feel like the more I would think about how it would be like, it would make me want to go back to it.
Mm, okay. Well, I know that you've started this recovery journey. Tell us, what are some of the biggest challenges and victories along your recovery?
Yeah, so recovery, it's not a pretty process. Like, it is not at all. It's very messy, and at times it can be very overwhelming. In the beginning, I had to relearn how to nourish my body properly, which felt very terrifying. Every meal felt like a battle, and resisting the urge to step on the scale constantly was one of the hardest things I had to do. Probably one of my biggest challenges was accepting the way I looked at my lowest weight was not healthy. For so long, I had convinced myself that I looked amazing, and the thought of gaining weight felt uncomfortable and disgusting. Letting go of that mindset was one of the hardest parts of my recovery. But there were a victory in there too. One of the most powerful moments in my journey that also helped me get better was hearing other people's stories,
Mhm.
realizing that I wasn't alone in that battle. Knowing that others had felt the same struggles and came out stronger gave me hope, and I could do the same. Recovery is not easy, but every step forward, no matter how small, has been worth it.
That's so awesome. And I love the idea of sharing our stories. There's an author I really like. Her name is Brene Brown, and she talks about how sharing that our stories become these survival guides for other people. There are people who have gone through this who are further along in that recovery journey than you. And so you're able to use them for inspiration and glean wisdom from them. But in the same way, you're further along in your recovery journey than a lot of other people who are going through this and are, kind of in the thicks of those bad relationships with food. And so I'm really excited for you to be able to share your story and become an inspiration for those people also.
Yes, I just want to help people the same way they helped me when I was struggling. 'Cause you never know, you never know how bad someone needs that help. When I heard someone's story one day when I was at my lowest, that's what the light came on that told me to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, with food, it's something that is so easy for people to miss because our lives are so busy that oftentimes we're just grabbing food on the run while we're like on the way to practice or like on the way to school. People are just grabbing something since we don't really sit down and eat as groups a lot anymore. It's even easier, I think, sometimes to miss some of those signals if somebody that you know might be struggling. It's kind of not that hard to hide. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that a lot.
Because until you really start to look malnourished, which can take some time, it can be hidden pretty well. Just like, oh, I've already ate, and nobody's going to question you.
Yeah.
So, how would you recommend, or how can somebody else recognize when they have an unhealthy relationship with food?
Well, everyone's relationship with food is very different, but a very common warning sign that I learned and I experienced was avoiding any situation or event that involves food, whether
Hmm.
it's skipping the social event, making excuses not to eat around others, or feeling extreme anxiety about meals. People struggling with these may deny behaviors because they fear being judged for eating, but overwhelming guilt afterwards, or don't have any access a way to purge. Another one is when someone goes to the bathroom right after they eat. Looking back, one of the biggest warning signs I wish I had recognized earlier was how much I isolated myself.
Hmm.
I stopped spending time with my family and friends, choosing instead to stay in my room and hide from the world. At the time, I didn't know how to express what I was feeling, and I was terrified of being judged. I convinced myself that no one would understand, but in reality, shutting people out only made the things worse. Recognizing these behaviors only on can make a difference in getting the help and support needed before things spiral further.
I resonate with some of those things because I remember in junior high, my best friend was so much smaller than me, just build wise. She was a lot shorter. I'm 5'8". She was, probably around 5 foot or so. And for some reason, it was just so important for me to like be able to wear the same size shorts as her.
Yeah.
It was just, and maybe it was because, when we were hanging out, I just felt like such a giant. I just hated that feeling. I just wanted to feel small because to me, small meant feminine or pretty or girly.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
being big, it felt, I don't know. I don't know if it felt like masculine. I don't know
It
exactly.
did.
Is that how you felt too?
That's how I felt. Like I felt like a man. Like
Yeah, because like
this
I was
felt.
tall, I have like big hands, I mean, I didn't have a lot of excess weight exactly, but it just felt like I was towering over everybody. And I just wanted to feel like dainty, I guess. And also in junior high, as I'm sure all of you know and remember, like the boys are always shorter than the girls in junior
They
high.
are.
And so I think a lot of it for me kind of started too of wanting, starting to have crushes and wanting to be recognized or seen as pretty, like some of the other girls. But the boys always seem to prefer the girls who are smaller,
Yeah.
probably for the same reason, honestly, because, for men, they like to be bigger and tower over because it does feel more masculine. And so I just felt like people ignored me or they'd pass me by. I think that started some of my struggles, and I never had like a diagnosis, but there was certainly a season where, I didn't want to eat in front of anybody. I always felt big, and I just wanted to try to minimize whatever weight I was to put on, which is hard when you're still growing. Still,
Yeah.
it wouldn't make any sense for, a child, if you're thinking like a third grader, to be the same size in third grade as fourth grade. We're continuing to grow still. But then it's like once I hit that like sixth grade, like I didn't want to grow anymore. but
Oh.
but my body wasn't done growing, and it took me a long time to be okay with the size that I was. I think mine went up even into college. It took me some time to detach my height and size from my feeling like a woman.
I really liked what you said about you didn't have no diagnosis about how you felt, because I think what a lot of people get mixed up is like to have problems with food you have to have a diagnosis, when that's not really the case. You can have problems with food even if you don't have a diagnosis, because
Absolutely.
I promise anytime in your life you're going to have a problem with food. It may just be for a quick day or a few minutes, but you do not need that diagnosis at all.
Well, absolutely. And I think for women, especially, this is something that really follows us. So I'm really excited about, your recovery process now and the help that you're getting now to have that relationship, because I cannot remember a time that I wasn't having some kind of conversation with my women friends about food or weight or trying to be in shape or, swimsuit season, even
Ugh.
if it's just, complaining about shopping for a swimsuit. Throughout our lives, That relationship with food, regardless of a diagnosis, is really something that we all have to come to terms with. What are we using food for? Is it to fuel our bodies, or is it to make ourselves feel better? Is it like an emotional response? Is it because we want to have control because our lives feel chaotic? There's so many ways that people misuse food.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your support system. How did friends, family, mentors, how did they help you on your journey? And were there any people who hurt your journey?
Having a strong support system is probably it's something you really need when you're battling anything. It's about having the right people. Sometimes it means losing certain people, like friends or even family members. And while that can be painful, it's necessary for healing and recovering. My family had never dealt with anything like this before, so they didn't know how to handle it. But they tried their best. Most importantly, they made sure I got the help I needed. When it came to friends, I lost a lot of them because I isolated myself so much. But the
Mm,
ones who stuck by my side became my greatest source of support. Meeting others in recovery, whether it was in hospitals or clinics, was also life-changing. Being able to talk openly about with people who truly understood without judgment or fear made a huge difference. Mentors might be my favorite part, honestly. I've been lucky to find some amazing teachers, therapists, doctors, and psychiatrists who gave me the guidance and encouragement I needed to push through. They reminded me that recovery was possible even though I couldn't see it for myself. Someone who kind of hurt and made it worse was my first boyfriend I ever had. I
mm,
was I was not I thought having a boyfriend was one of the most important things when you got in junior high, but once I got in that first relationship and it ended, it turned out to make my eating disorder and mental health a million times worse than it was. And
absolutely.
I told myself I was not going to get in another relationship, but it took time, and now now I found someone who makes me very happy, and it it's really worth waiting.
Yeah, and if you're in a healthier place, then you're probably going to attract healthier people
Mhm.
also. And it's so funny, I think, how obsessed we are as girls about, getting that boyfriend. It's going to be the best thing ever, or solve all our problems. We want the fairy tale prince, right? The one that's going to slay all the
Yes.
dragons and fix all the problems and all of that. But in reality, it's once you're actually in that situation, you realize they haven't matured to that point yet, especially whenever you're talking 14, 15-year olds. There's some people who, of course, are toxic and all of that, but even if it's not that, we can't really expect 14, 15-year-old boy to have the maturity to solve all our problems and make all the bad feelings go away. It's we're all trying to figure this out together. But
Yes,
a-
absolutely.
as we grow up, though, we're working on ourselves, and as we work on ourselves, then we can attract healthier people. And then, of course, best case scenario, we're all growing at the same time. One thing that you said about your family, I really wanted to point out. I love that they didn't necessarily know how to fix it, but
No.
they made sure that you got the help that you need. Because I think a lot of people who know someone in this situation, sometimes they don't want to say anything because their friend doesn't wants it to be a secret, and they don't want to break the trust of their friend, but they're not really equipped to handle it. I really just love that message of, you don't have to be able to have the knowledge, or you don't have to be the person to fix it for that person that you love that's going through this. You can really support and just help to guide them into the resources that they need, that is loving them well.
Yes, that it's truly like, even though they don't understand what's happening, it is it is good to know that they do care enough to at least help get the help that you need.
Mhm.
Especially like I spent so long keeping that a secret, and when it finally got to the point when I got the help, it was a huge relief knowing that they got me the help I needed.
Yeah. And I think another thing to note too is to maybe notice some of those things. I know for me, I learned not to bring it up because if I said that I like felt fat or big or whatever, people would ridicule me because I mean, I weighed like 115 pounds, at that time.
Yeah,
So, like,
absolutely.
it's like, what are you talking about? Like, that's dumb. But at the same time, if you do hear that from somebody who, as we might say, like doesn't have any business saying, anything or whatever, that might be a clue for you to ask them what else is going on, because instead of just dismissing it and saying like, shut up, you're not fat, and like going on to the next, maybe something that you want to ask them about and see what's going on.
Yes, that's exactly true. Like, I remember just being with my friends and not being able to talk about how I felt because I was so worried that they were going to get mad because, I mean, I was 120 pounds at the time when I started saying these things, and they'd be like, "What?"
Yeah, absolutely. And the other interesting thing is, tell me if this is how you felt also, but for me, I never thought anybody else was big. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I have friends who weigh more
Yeah,
than me, and I'm just like, you're beautiful. I didn't see anything wrong with their appearance. Like, I thought they were stunning, but for some reason, when I looked in the mirror, it was like the rules were different for me.
exactly.
Did your faith help strengthen you in hard moments of recovery? Were there any prayers or scriptures or truths that gave you hope?
Yes, my faith was one of the constant source of my hardest moments of my recovery. One scripture that stood out to me is Psalms 139, which says, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made."
Mm.
It was a reminder that I am valued of my created with purpose. Even when I felt lost in the mindset of my struggle, prayer was also incredibly powerful to me. During my depths of my battle of anorexia, I would turn to God, asking for His help and guidance. Simply praying for His strength to get through each day and gave me hope, and reminded me that I wasn't alone in this journey.
Oh, I love that. That is one of my favorite. It's so easy for us to start picking ourselves apart regardless of what it is. I have straight hair in which I have curly hair, or I have light skin in which I have dark skin. I have, my weight's not whatever it is. But God made us on purpose, and we are perfect just the way we are. So, what advice would you give someone who is struggling with this disordered eating but feels too ashamed or afraid to ask for help?
My biggest piece of advice would be, don't be ashamed of what you're going through. I spent 2 years trying to hide it, and it only got worse the longer I waited. The fear and shame can feel overwhelming, but reaching out for help is the bravest thing you could do. Finding someone you trust, whether it's a friend, a parent, a teacher, or anyone who you feel safe with. You don't have to carry this burden alone. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness, and it's the first step toward healing.
If someone were going to just start today, what's a practical first step into rebuilding a healthy relationship with food and with your body image?
It can be challenging, but for me, like therapy was a huge part of the process. It's been like an essential for me to rewire my brain and shift my mindset. Another thing that I continue to use every day is to cover up the nutrition labels on food. or put them in like a plastic container where I couldn't see them, like a bag of chips or something.
Mm.
This simple step, it helps me avoid obsessing over numbers and focus enjoying my food. I've also worked on changing my mind, telling myself that I am beautiful and that my body doesn't define me has been really important. It's all about learning to embrace your body and nourish it without the guilt or the shame.
Oh, I love that. I love that tip of taking away the nutrition labels. I think I notice it more as I get older is my body is not able to it just doesn't feel good whenever I eat certain foods. And
Yeah,
so really just kind of being attuned also to not just how the food tastes, but also how does that food make my body feel after I eat it. And so, I've just been noticing focusing on nourishing by eating nourishing foods and maybe trying to like reduce some of that junk food that does make my body feel bad after I eat it, has been a good thing for me too. But
absolutely.
I think though it's important, like you said, taking those labels off and all of that to get rid of any of the ideas of calories or numbers or, sugars and fats and all of that. It's more like, hey, let's just look at this food as is. And then does this food make me feel good or does it not? Okay, so if you could go back and encourage your younger self, during the times you were struggling, what would you say to her?
I would tell her it's don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay to lean on others when you need that support. I'd also remind her that she is so beautiful, and there was nothing wrong with her. She was truly a pretty girl, inside and out, and she deserves to see herself the way others see her.
That's so awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You really have just come such a long way. And
Thank you.
I mean, of course, you're always beautiful to me, inside and out. But I can tell, these days, there is more of a, light in your eyes. It's
Oh,
like
thank
there's that
you.
life that you can see. And so many times when we deprive ourselves, whether it's food or sleep or proper nutrition, what have you, sometimes some of that life starts to drain out of us. You're there physically, but mentally, sometimes there's like a dullness about us
Yes.
when we're not like properly taking care of ourselves. And just seeing such a just a vibrancy and a life about you lately. I'm just really, really excited for this
Thank
next chapter
you.
to see what all good things are in store for you.
I
Uh,
am the happiest I've been in a while, so I
Well,
am.
and I noticed the other day I was looking on my Instagram and I noticed that you're chronicling your recovery journey online. So I want to make sure that our listeners know about your recovery account and where they can check your content out.
Yeah, so I actually did create an Instagram account called own_your_recovery. Maybe you could share that in there, but it's
Absolutely.
to share my personal journey of anorexia. It's a space where I talk openly about my recovery process and share facts about anorexia to help raise awareness. My goal is to create a safe and supportive environment for others who may be going through the similar struggles. I want people to know that they feel comfortable and understood, so they know they are not alone in those experiences.
I love that so much. And I do think that you being so open with your journey and people being able to follow it and seeing even where you were then versus where you are now, just like you said, to know that there is another side, that it is possible to do that hard work and make those decisions. And I really am excited to see the hope that your channel is going to give.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, Anna, thank you so much for being on the Surviving My Story Teens podcast with us today. I hope that you'll come back.
I will. I loved it. Thank you for inviting me today.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks so much for joining me on this chapter of Surviving My Story Teens. Hope you're feeling encouraged and reminded that no matter what is happening in your story right now, God is still writing something beautiful. If you want to dive deeper into today's topic or connect with me, be sure to visit my social media channels for more content, encouragement, and conversations. I'd love to hear from you and walk alongside you in your journey. And don't forget to tune in next time for another episode where we'll uncover more about living the story God has written for you with confidence, faith, and purpose. Until then, keep trusting the author and embracing the beauty of your story. You were made for an extraordinary ending.